Yeah, we don't need to have a book reason.
This is our book.
Welcome to another edition of Literary Discussion Group with your panel of experts. Today we're going to be discussing From the Mixed Up Files of Miss Basil E. Frankwaller by E.L. Konigsberg. And we're going to begin with a summary of the book and then move on from there.
Okay, the summary is broken down into chapters. In chapter 1, the chapter starts with Claudia Kincaid deciding that she's going to run away. After careful consideration, she decides to take her brother Jamie with her. She knows that he's good with money, so he's the reasonable choice out of her siblings. She wants to run away because she wants a change. She's tired of the endless fighting over television and chores and the monotony of her life at home. She's determined that they must run away to New York City and stay in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. She discusses her plan and how she saved a bus pass to use to get to New York that she found in her parents' trash can. She approaches her brother on the bus and gets him to choose to run away with her. He's fairly easy to convince, and with the $24 she saved up, they know that they should be okay on money. In the second chapter, they've made their preparations to run away and they begin their journey. They ride their school bus as usual and then hide in the bus until it reaches the bus depot. And then from there they head to the train station to ride a train into the city. And as they're leaving, Claudia mails a letter home to tell her family not to worry about her, as if they're not going to worry.
Which killed me as an adult reading that, which I didn't even think about when I was younger.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
Like
and then at the end of the book, she's
distraught.
like, when Mrs. Frankwaller says that they were so worried, she was like, why?
I know.
I mailed him a letter. You know, like, that should have calmed them down.
And when I was a little girl reading this, that made perfect sense. I was
Yes.
like, yeah, that was good of her. She sent the letter, everything's good.
covered all
Responsible,
bases.
Right.
As a parent, it terrifies me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hope my kids don't pull that. In the third chapter, Claudia and Jamie start to walk from the train station to the museum, and of course they walk instead of taking a taxi because they have to save their money. Jamie, I think he likes feeling that control of controlling the money, and then he also likes using the compass to figure out which way to go. I think it makes them feel older, and then they realize that even though they're kids walking by themselves in New York, nobody seems to notice that
Right.
they're by themselves with other parents. So they said it's the perfect place to hide out. They make a plan on how they're going to hide in the museum. They go in, they have to check their belongings, they go through and figure out where they're going to sleep, where they're going to hide from the night watchman, and then they have to exit the museum, get their stuff, and then come back in the back entrance. And then that leads into the next chapter, where they decide they're going to take advantage of living in the museum by trying to learn something every day. And that's when they discover the angel sculpture, when they see the crowd all coming in to see it. Let's see, then the next chapter, they go out to do their laundry and then go to the library to try to find books on Michelangelo, who everyone thinks made the angel sculpture. They want to try to prove that yes, he did sculpt it.
Which again, as a child, it's like,
Yeah.
the mystery of that is so rich reading it. As an adult, you see the difference. Like it just seems inevitable during the read that it's going to belong to Michelangelo.
Right.
I don't know. I was so caught up in that as a young girl reading it and the mystery of it, and the thought of the light shining on the statue, and then Mrs. Basil Frankwaller's home. It was very mysterious when I was young, and I didn't feel that same way about
Exactly,
it when I read
me
it as
too.
an
It
adult.
was definitely a different experience reading it for me as an adult, which is why I picked it, because I had read it as a kid, and I remember loving it because it was so cool that they lived in a museum for however long. But and reading it as a kid, I was sure that they had solved the mystery. Like from their perspective, they were sure that they figured it out.
When they wrote the letter.
When they wrote the
They said
letter,
the
they were
letter.
like, "We're going to enlighten everybody." And then when they get that letter, I remember as a kid feeling like, "Oh," But then reading it as an adult, you're like, they're idiots.
Well, and I thought the letter was so. I felt like if I had been receiving that letter, I would have been very pleased with the letter, and of course Claudia was not, which I think was good further character development, because she was so disappointed. It didn't matter that it was polite, that it used nice language. That was almost worse to her.
Right.
That it did
right.
that. It was like a slap in the face, because what they had thought was intensive detective work turned out to be just a thank you, we know that, kind of a patronizing little bit, moment for them.
Yeah.
We didn't answer any of her questions.
I bet
She
even
wanted
as
it
a
to be
kid it
certain.
would be different reading it the second time than the first, because that's
Yeah.
half the charm of the book is is
the
not
mystery.
knowing.
And like I think I mentioned, like when we first met last week in class, that like I don't remember a lot of this book. Like I remember the museum part, but the stuff about Angel, it was very little. I remember the letter that they wrote and the one that they wrote back and being disappointed, but that was it. I mean, it's interesting that as a kid, the thing that stuck with me was the runaway story.
I think that's the same
that's
with
the
me. I remember,
excitement.
I just remembered, oh, they ran away and they lived
Gonna
in the
get
museum,
caught.
and that's all I thought of, and not that they were solving this mystery or the change in
Right.
Claudia or any of
Right.
that, but
I really
Those are deeper
remember
things.
the money. I loved the
Love the money,
yes.
I
yes.
loved the doling out, what they were going to buy next, and this was my favorite book. So this is my childhood copy. This is my favorite book. I read this book probably 5 times when I was younger, and I wasn't like the biggest reader either. So I identified with Claudia a lot, and I never had a brother. I really liked Jamie's character and how, the play between them, which would be, we could continue with the summary, but maybe we could also, that would be a good segue into
Yeah.
questions, yes.
the one about the interplay between the siblings.
Sure. Well, yeah, we can do this.
Let me just, while we're on that, before we leave that, I also, as far as the angel statue thing, I wasn't sure that was the only adventure. When I was reading it, I wasn't sure that was the main adventure. I thought, oh, this is going to be one of several things that happens to them. And,
Yeah, it was over
Yeah.
quick.
Yeah.
It was over quick. I was surprised how quickly it was
I
going.
think it's because it's like a child's book. Like if it
Yeah.
were an adult book, that would start with Angel. But then, like I think we talked last week, we said it seemed like when Angel was moved that we all thought that it was going to be replaced with a fake. And I think
Yeah.
if it had been in an adult book and more, of like a mystery adult book, I think it would have been that Angel was stolen, and then they go on this
Yeah.
wild chase to find it, and it would have extended. But I think for a child's book, this was like just the perfect length to hold.
And it also
the interest.
parallels what Claudia noticed about their learning experiences when they were in the museum, about how they could learn a lesson every day, and maybe at first they thought they would tackle every wing, every exhibit, and so it could have been this extensive story. It could have gone in all these different directions, but they kept it, with a narrow focus. And then I'm wondering what you all think. What was the climax then of the story?
Right.
Was it Angel? Was it when they found the crushed can, or was it the climax? Really built towards the end, possibly. Was it when they were searching through the files?
The files and found out it was her. It was
that's a
actually
very
him.
slow climb to that moment, and a very quick turn towards the resolution of the
Yeah,
book.
because if that's the climax, then it was like pages away from the end of the book.
yeah.
Which gave you that, which is, goes to show why, at that moment when you learn about Angel and they move the statue, why you're thinking maybe something more dramatic is going to occur there, because it is more central to, as far as the length of the book goes, what happens in the middle. But instead they just take you slowly to, through the mystery, but it doesn't have that dramatic turn right there,
Yeah.
which maybe you expected, especially as an adult, since you're so
Yeah.
familiar with the formula of books.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and maybe for kids, like part of the excitement is just the expectation, not so much the payoff at the end.
Right, right.
And still being, they would not go home. Still having those moments throughout that where they're like, okay, well maybe now's the time we go home. No, not yet. They're holding to, Claudia is really holding to that mission of, especially after Angel, I'm going to come home different.
Right.
It's not what it was about when we started this journey, which also will go to the questions
Other
that
questions,
you have.
yeah.
It might be a good idea to go there and then hit
Yeah,
the
and then
summary
come back,
points
yeah.
at the end of
Come
the
back.
discussion.
Okay. My first question is, one of the things that struck me most about this book was Claudia's desire to come back different after she ran away. I can remember having similar feelings during the semester that I studied abroad during undergrad school. And my question is, why do you think this type of feeling exists in us? Is it just a youthful thing, or do we all have that need to be unique and to evolve within ourselves, throughout our lives? That was my question. And I know I said I have my own thoughts about it, so I can start us off that way if you want. I kind of think that it's definitely